All right, we are live. We are live. We are live. Just giving everybody a chance to come on into the chat. Come on in, come on in, come on in. So I'll just let it run for a minute. Beautiful. So we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram, all at the same time. All at the same time. So we are going live from the Riverside app. And if it was not for the genius brain of Alexis Crawford, who has been so solid in the background, helping me set up all of this live technology and all of this, because some things I know and some things I don't. And I'm perfectly fine with admitting the things that I don't. And not only that, but seeking help and understanding from others that do. So this is definitely her expertise. So if you all are looking for someone that can help manage your social media life, and your posts and your graphics and your emails and your websites, Alexis Crawford is definitely the one. So after all of my posts or all of my graphics, you'll see her business logo. So please, 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 please reach out to her, because you will be so happy that you did. So I'm just going to give everybody a little bit more chance of coming in live, but we are going live. It is Let's Talk About It Thursday. So excited about this. So excited about engaging and interacting with community. I know it's on the live platform, but, and if you look at the screen down below, it'll tell you where if you need social help, click that link, and that's going to get you right to Alexis. And you will be so happy that you did. So this platform has been, I'm just blown away over the past few weeks about this whole platform coming to fruition, and how God has literally just, he's opened up so many hearts and minds when it comes to the end of life care process, and the connections that we're making when it comes to having these extremely tough conversations when it comes to end of life care. It's not easy. There's nothing easy about it, but it can be beautiful. And I think that's where we struggle, is trying to figure out how something that can be so painful can also be so beautiful as well. And the Melanated Hospice Nurse is going to be here step by step alongside of everyone to help guide and walk us through understanding that this journey, as painful as it is, can be just as equally beautiful. As intense as it is painfully, it can be just as beautiful. So excited about this platform, so excited about being able to come live and talk to you all throughout the week. So the way it's structured, and I know I'm going to explain this more than once, but I really want to make sure that we have a clear understanding of how this is working, and how God has laid it on my heart to be able to communicate with community. So how it's structured is every Sunday, we drop a new episode every week. So every month, we have a main topic that we discuss. And then every week, we're going to have subtopics that we're going to go into as much detail as we can to really understand the different layers of what it means in the end of life space, either as a caregiver or if it's something that we're experiencing ourselves. And being able to talk, to commune, to lean on one another, to trust one another, to guide one another, to learn from one another what that experience is like, either as a caregiver or as someone who's actually going through the end of life process themselves. And as hard it is to believe, and as sad it is as it is to believe, there are a lot of people that go through this process alone. They don't have the support of family, and they don't have the support of community to navigate through a space that they've never navigated through before. And I often have to remind families when it comes to this dying process, let's just say, that this is going to sound really, really crazy and almost elementary, but this person has never done this before. So they don't know how to do it. They don't know what to do. They too are struggling, trying to figure out what's next. Why is my body doing what it's doing? Why am I not desiring the things I used to desire? Why is it that I can't stop this process with the medicine? Why is this happening? Even though intellectually we all know that our day will come when we're going to transition from this world to the next. But once you're in that space, that's a whole different ballgame. So being able to remind us that as a person is going through the transitioning process, they've never done this before. So they don't have a clear answer to exactly how to do it. They don't know. They don't know why it's happening. They don't know why they're not hungry. They don't know why they're sleeping a lot. They don't know. All they know is that they are surrendering to what's happening, that they're giving in to the process. It's just like asking a baby, well, why are you forming in the womb? I don't know. It's just what I was designed to do. It's what the body is designed to do. So that's what this space is going to be about, is really trying to help each other navigate through the spaces of the death and dying process, end of life care, end of life as a caregiver, end of life as someone that's actually experiencing that. So we have a topic for the month, and then every week we have a subtopic, and we really go into detail during those subtopics. So this week's topic, the podcast dropped on Sunday, and it has gotten an amazing response. And I could not have done it without community, without you all. So what we discussed this week was, why does fear surround the word hospice? Why does fear surround the word hospice, especially when it comes to our community? Why does fear surround the word hospice? And we were able to really go into the reasons why that fear is there. First, the fear of death. Just the fear of death. That's the biggest thing, because it's such an unknown, because we've never done it before. And all we know that we won't have the life that we're in right now. We don't know what's on the other side. We won't be connected to community. We won't be connected to family. I don't know where I'm going. I'm not talking about if you believe in heaven or not. That's not what I'm saying. But literally understanding what that process is like on the other side. So the fear of death is one of the biggest reasons as to why the word fear surrounds the word, why fear surrounds the word hospice, is because when you hear the word hospice, you think of death. When you hear the word death, you think of fear. So therefore, when I hear the word hospice, I automatically have a fear factor attached to it. Because hospice equals death and death equals fear. So therefore, hospice must equal fear. Because that's what hospice is. We are an end-of-life care model. We care for those individuals that have come to a point in their life where either they've gotten a prognosis of 6 months to a year to live, or they themselves have decided they no longer want to go through any treatments anymore. They just want their body to go through whatever the natural process is. Hospice comes in to help that person in that space, to help the families. That's what hospice is. Hospice is a philosophy. It is a theory that was based on the fact that a human being should not die alone and should not die in pain. A human being should not die alone and not die in pain. And that's how hospice came about. So yes, we are connected to death. And yes, the word death does, or the thought of death does bring up fear. So that's why death is one of the main reasons why fear surrounds the word hospice. Another reason is family disconnection during that time, where families are not on the same page. Some family members agree to hospice, some family members don't, and then there's this discord in the family. Some families don't want their loved one to get on hospice. Some families do. The loved one doesn't want to get on hospice. The family's trying very hard to let them know that there's not much more we can do and we need help. So it can really lead to a lot of family discord. For sure. I have so many stories about families because I always say that the dying process brings out the true characteristic of a family. It does. It brings out the true characteristics of a family. The true characteristics of who that family is will come out during the dying process because it's such an intimate space. And you're so vulnerable and open that a lot of things you can no longer hide or pretend like they're not happening. And trust me, they do come out during that time. Another topic that we discuss as to why fear surrounds the word hospice is a loss of hope. A loss of hope. When a person is given a prognosis of less than a year to live, and the doctor looks at them and says, listen, we have done everything that we possibly can. All the treatments that we've tried over the course of however long that person has tried treatments, they're no longer serving the body. They're no longer effective anymore. There's no change happening from the treatment. The disease or the illness is now starting to take over or burdening the body. I think it's time to call in hospice. I think it's best for you to end out your final days under the care of hospice. Automatically, it's like the breath leaves that person's life because now the hope that they were clinging onto for a cure, whatever that looks like, they were clinging onto the hope of something changing so they can continue to live the life that they're familiar with, all of a sudden is snatched away from them. And then hospice comes into play, being an end-of-life care organization, and we almost come in like the exclamation point, like, yep, now that hospice is here, it's like, wow, I really don't have a chance of getting better if you guys are here because you guys are death. That's what you do when you come in. You talk about death all the time. So a person fears the loss of hope. So when they hear the word hospice, automatically they think, well, then I have nothing left to live for. I have no more fight. They're telling me that there's nothing more that I can do. But what I try to do as the hospice nurse coming into that space is to make sure that if the hope of the body, the physical body, is slim to none, and only God knows that because we've all seen miracles. But if the hope of the physical body is slim to none, then now we focus on the hope of the other areas of you being healed because we are multi-layered beings. There's so many other beautiful aspects of who we are. We are mental, we are physical, we are spiritual, we are conscious, we are subconscious, we are emotions, we are chakras, we are all of those beautiful layers of who we are. And a lot of the times in our life's journey, we don't focus on those layers of who we are. So there's a lot of damage that's done because we haven't given those other layers the attention that they've needed. So now here we are coming to the end of our life, and there's other layers of us that need to be cared for or at least acknowledged. So now we can shift the hope of healing from just the physical part of who we are to the other layers of who we are. And we can work on those healing processes. So yes, the hope of the physical body may be slim to none, but there's other areas of you that hope still exists of healing spiritually, mentally, conscious, subconscious, psychological, all of those layers of who we are that we really haven't been paying attention to. Now we get to this point where now we're looking at, oh my gosh, my entire lifespan and who we truly, truly are. And now we want to start focusing on those parts being healed. So that can help to usher in the peace that we need to accept what's happening. So now we can enter into the space of celebration, enter into the dying space, celebrating joy, laughter, love. So the hope of the physical body, you may feel like it's been snatched away from you or your loved one, but we're going to work on other areas that the hope is still there. And the healing of those other areas feels amazing when people actually acknowledge that they are multi-layered beings and there's aspects of them that they have ignored or weren't even aware of in this entire life's journey. And now here they are at the end of this life's journey, and they feel that all hope is gone. And it is our responsibility as the hospice caregivers to make sure to tell that person, you are so much more than just the physical body. Now we start having these beautiful conversations of mental healing and spiritual healing and psychological healing. And now they're feeling whole. They're feeling complete. So now the dying process has taken a shift from despair to now the hope of a beautiful journey. So we focused on that. But the one thing that I really wanted to mention tonight that a lot of you have been commenting on, and eventually we're going to get to a point where we're able to read comments and all this interaction, all that technology, I'm loving it and we're getting there. But the one comment that I realized that I saw more than other comments was when I talked about through my entire hospice journey, the one thing that I've taken away from the patients that I've taken care of, that I've been not even just taken care of, but the ability to journey alongside of them, let's just say, being a part of their journey. Because a lot of the times you think we're doing all the care, but a lot of the times the patients and the families, they're helping us to learn how to care for them. So, but the one thing that I've learned, that I've really taken away as a human being, is being able to witness that the dying process, when I watched someone experience the dying process, how the life that they lived really comes to play during that time. And what I mean by that, you could almost see their personality of who they were, who they are, how they lived their life in this final phase of their journey. I had a patient today, and I just adored this couple. They've been married for over 60 years. The wife is a retired nurse, and she is just a beautiful spirit. She is so accepting of the care and the advice that we give her when it comes to helping to take care of him. He's, of course, unfortunately losing his memory. But over the last 2 weeks, he's really gone down as far as physically is concerned. He's starting to disconnect from the desire to want to be in any environments with other people. He's feeling much more comfortable being at home. His appetite has really diminished to little to nothing. He is definitely sleeping more, having a very difficult time now standing up out of the recliner chair. So I had a very, very detailed, beautiful, honest conversation with the wife today because he slept during the entire visit, which is also an indicator that he's definitely preparing and getting closer and closer. So as he was sleeping very peacefully, we were able to go into those very deep conversations about what this looks like and how the fact that he no longer is desiring to go participate in the facility activities, going down to meals, going out on outings, is not because he doesn't want to. It's because he's doing what his body is asking him to do. He no longer wants to eat anymore, not because he doesn't want to. He no longer desires to eat anymore because he's doing exactly what his body is asking him to do. And we talked about how when a person gets to a certain part of their journey, the rules of the body change. The body goes from actively living to actively dying, actively living to actively transitioning. There are different sets of rules. A body that's actively living needs nutrition, hydration, not that much sleep, interaction, all of that. A body that's actively transitioning no longer needs food, not at the pace that we were used to prior to, no longer requires a whole lot of hydration. Sips of fluid are adequate enough for the body at times. Bites of food are adequate enough for the body, because all of those sensors that we needed to trigger the body, that it needed food for energy, all of those beautiful sensors are now starting to shut down. It's like this beautiful symphony where everything's starting to go all together. The signal for hunger shuts down, so the desire to eat shuts down. The signal to stay awake starts to slow down, so the desire to sleep starts to increase. It's a beautiful symphonic movement of the body. They're not protesting. They're not doing it because they want to make anybody upset. They're not eating because they don't want to eat. The body no longer has the desire for food, because where it's going, food is no longer necessary. Food is for energy. It goes from an actively living body to a spiritual led body. Now it's all about the spirit of the body now. No longer the physical. The spiritual is now taking over and starting to prepare itself to go on to its next assignment. So being able to explain that to her, because she's a retired ICU nurse. So we all know in ICU, everything is about saving that life. So being able to sit and have that beautiful conversation with her. And once we were done, she was just like, this is beautiful. It all makes sense now. And I told her, I said, as hard as this is to hear, he is literally doing a good job in this dying process. He is peaceful. He is accepting. He is ready to go be with the Lord. He had a near-death experience early on in his life, and they were both in a motorcycle accident, and God appeared to him, and he said over his right shoulder, and he heard and saw God. He said he didn't see him, but he heard him. And just as clear as day, God asked him if he wanted to come with him or if he wanted to stay. And he answered God and said, God, the choice is yours. So he said, since that time, he no longer fears death. So he's very accepting of what's getting ready to happen. So I reassured his wife that from the looks of him, when I come to visit him every Thursday morning at 9:30, he's always very peaceful, very accepting. And we don't talk about death all the time. That's not what we do. We talk about everything else. But in those conversations, you can see the baseline of who his spirit really is. And it's just very calm and peaceful. And he's ready to go be with the Lord. According to him, that's what he says when we do talk about it, because we have so many other things to talk about. So being able to help her walk through this journey where we're now shifting the mindset from everything being so physical and so medical to everything being spiritual, because that's what's leading him. It's not about religion. And I need for you all to hear me when I say that. It's about the body preparing to leave, or the soul and spirit preparing to leave this old body behind. That's what's happening. And then we're going to go on to our next assignment. So every beautiful aspect of who he is all coming to a pinnacle. And one day, possibly soon, because now we have to get a lift chair for him. Now we have to get the hospital bed for him, because it's getting very difficult for him to get out of his standard bed. So all of those things are starting to change. And every time there's a change, me and her talk about it. And we talk about how he is doing a good job. He is doing exactly what the body is demanding him to do, what the spirit is leading him to do. And that was so reassuring for her, because she was starting to feel guilty that she was still here and he was starting to transition. But after we've been having these conversations along the way, but it was more so preparing her for what was getting ready to happen. But now it's happening. Now he's asleep. Even today, his voice was softer, it was more to whisper. Because every ounce of energy that he needs for this process to take place has to be given to the process. It can't be given to going down to dinner. It can't be given to going out for dinner. It can't be given to having a lot of friends come over. The energy that he has is reserved for the process that's happening. Anything else is exhausting. It's like trying to keep a baby awake for 24 hours. You can't do it. It's exhausting because the baby has to do what the body's demanding. When we get to this stage of the journey, it's the same exact thing. I always say life and birth and death are mirror images of one another. They just take place at different the different parts of our lifespan, but they're literally mirror images of one another. So what I'm learning, and I told her, I said, when I first met him and we had this conversation about what do you want that day to look like? And it wasn't on the first day because it takes time to have that conversation. That's not something you just walk in and go, hi, I'm Melissa, your hospice nurse. So what do you want your day of death to look like? No, it takes trust. You have to build trust with them. But through our conversations and our visits, we were able to have that very honest conversation. And I told him, I said, your spirit leads me to think that your transitioning process is going to be as peaceful as you are. And I live by that. Listen, y'all, I'm trying to get better with that. I really, really am. I am trying to get better with that. And what I mean by that is I'm trying to live my life now so my life can influence my death. If I want a peaceful death, because I do, I really do. They say 90% of the population desires to have a peaceful death, to die at home in their sleep, not in pain. If that is what I desire for myself, and I have seen how people's lives, their death process kind of mirrors their life a little bit, and I'm not saying it's an exact science, but I've seen it enough to where I'm convinced. But I can walk into that room and I can go, I can tell by that personality, it's gonna be a journey, it's gonna be a tough one, or you know what, they might just go in their sleep. If I see that to be the case, and I have an opportunity for my life to influence my death, for my death to reflect my life, then I need to start living that life now. If I feel that my death is a direct reflection of who I am and how I lived, when a person walks in that room, they can automatically look and see, wow, she lived a peaceful life. If I believe that to be the case, because I do, I need to take the lessons from my dying days now and apply them to where I am now. I need to take the lessons from my dying days and apply them to where I am now. Because if I believe that the life that I live can influence my death, and my death influences how I'm living right now, then there's some things that I need to really work on. And the beautiful thing about death is it really allows you to live a beautiful life. I have seen patients who've gotten that prognosis and they start living their life completely different. They appreciate, the regrets are minimal because they understand that I have been given the gift of time. I have been given the gift of time. The rest of us know that the time will come, but when someone tells you, and I'm not saying that man is God and they know the exact number, because I've seen people on their dying bed and they come back the next day and they're sitting up and eating. But what I'm saying is that when a person is given a prognosis of less than a year to live, because that's usually hospice's guidelines, I've seen people completely shift the way they look at life. The things that used to matter just don't matter anymore. The things that they ignored, they start to really focus on those things. Because now they're realizing what truly matters, because I'm not taking any of this with me. The only thing I want to take with me is peace. is peace. So that was one of the main comments that we were getting from this week's podcast, was that conversation, that part of the podcast, that awakening for me has touched so many people to say, wait a minute. So you mean to tell me that there's a if I have the opportunity to participate in my dying process, and I want it to be peaceful, yes, you want to let everybody around you know, this is how I want this to look. I want dancing and singing and celebration and family and food and all that. I want all of that around me as I'm dying, not at the funeral. I'm talking about the dying process. That's a whole different look. And I have an opportunity to influence that day, because I have personally seen people that I walk in a room and just like, wow, this person has really, they seem so peaceful and their deaths are beautiful. And I've seen the ones that will fight it. I have a patient right now, and it's not that she's fighting it. Let me tell you this. She's 101. The things that she survived, she grew up during the war in another country in the war. During that time, the one thing that she knew how to do was survive. She spent her entire life surviving in spaces that we could not imagine. She said when she grew up during the war, there was no food. So they had to learn how to survive. Her daughter said she's been a quiet survivor, just a quiet spirit, very quiet, beautiful spirit. But the way the way her body is declining, she's down to, maybe 75, 80 pounds, if that much. And just when you think, okay, she looks like she's getting close, I go in the next week or the next day and she's sitting up at her little table and she's nibbling on her food, doing it by herself, fighting tooth and nail. And it's not like she's fighting it, but because she's been conditioned to survive, she's doing the same exact thing with the dying process. She's just quietly surviving it. Now we know, me and her family have this conversation, eventually death will win out because it's happening. But that spirit in her, and I told her daughter that, I said, that spirit that she has in her, that spirit of survival, that's what we're seeing. She's defying odds. If that had been any one of us, we wouldn't have made it to 101. Especially after what she's been going through, her little body. But she has that quiet, powerful survival spirit. And I told the daughter, I said, that's what we're witnessing. That's what we're seeing. This beautiful quietness, this strong survival spirit. You can just see it. So I told her daughter, I said, we're just going to have to sit back and watch this, because this is what her and death are doing. And she's not resisting it, but she only knows one way to live, and that's surviving. So death is just another obstacle for her. We're slowly watching her deteriorate, and we're slowly watching death continually kind of creep. So she's not suffering. She's not miserable, nothing like that. But she's just this quiet, strong survival spirit. So I'm seeing how her life is playing an influence in her dying process. So I am convinced, because it's all a part of our journey. It's all a part of our journey. It's not something that just switches at the end. It's a part of who we are. We play a role in that. All those beautiful aspects that I talked about earlier, the spiritual, the mental, all of those parts of us that we haven't really paid attention to or didn't even know were there, that's still a part of who we are. That's still me. That's still who you are. That's the part that we see during the dying process as well, too. Your life influenced those. Those things influenced your life. So, of course, they're going to play a role in influencing some part of this dying process. We just don't know in what way. So, the goal is to be able to have the honest conversation with yourself about fear when it comes to the dying process, fear when you hear the word hospice, and how we can start to really shift what that means. I'm not saying we're going to eradicate fear when we hear the word hospice or when we talk about death and dying, but we can also start allowing other emotions to come forward as well too. The joy, the celebration, the peace, the legacy, the rituals, the ceremonies, all of those beautiful aspects, all those beautiful things of who we are. So now when I hear the word death, I now think of celebration. I think of peace. Because death is going to happen. For those of us that have an opportunity, we know that everybody's not going to have this journey. Some people are going to go suddenly and tragically in all those ways. But if we have the opportunity to actively participate in our dying process, what would we want that to look like? The dying process. We got the death part. It's the dying process. How do we want that to be? I want the room to be so full of peace, but I need to start doing that now. I need to practice that now. Joy. And I got work to do. I have work to do. I have work to do. But the thought of death, thinking about my death, and I have very healthy thoughts about death, it is literally influencing how I'm living right now. And that's what I want you all to take away. And that's been one of the main comments that I've been getting through this whole journey. After that last week's podcast, why does fear surround the word hospice, especially in our community? And being able to hear it from another perspective, that this can be a celebration of joy and peace and love and laughter and legacy. The dying process. The dying process. And then knowing that once we start to really understand it, that it starts to kind of diminish that fear emotion that keeps rising up every time we talk about it. And now what's starting to rise out is, you know what? It's not bad to think that it can be a joyful occasion. It's not that bad. It's not morbid. Why shouldn't you enjoy it? It's a journey. Why shouldn't you enjoy that journey? You have the right to enjoy that journey. Why shouldn't you? People that have near-death experiences, when they come back from those, they usually talk about how beautiful and peaceful everything was. Well, when the dying journey, the death journey actually starts happening, and it's not near death, but it's actually death, why shouldn't you still have that same peace and joy that they experienced with the near-death experience? That's why it's called near death, because it's not death, it was near it. So when the death process happens, the dying process happens, why shouldn't you be able to have that same experience? Oh, it's so beautiful. It's so peaceful. Why shouldn't you? You have the right to experience that if we're given the opportunity to participate in our dying process. But I need for everyone to start thinking different emotions when it comes to that. No longer just fear by itself, not the primary emotion. I want joy. I want you to think peace and love and legacy and laughter. I want you to plan it like you plan in a party. And we've had people do that. Oh yeah, they called in the troops. The family comes in. I had a patient. She was transitioning. She was in a nursing home and she was transitioning and she was just a beautiful soul. I used to call her auntie. She was an older woman, older African-American woman. And she had started the process. And up until that time, her family's so busy, didn't have a chance to really come in and visit her like they wanted to in the very beginning. Well, we made the phone call. I called the family, said, listen, this is happening. Like auntie's starting to really transition. And when I tell you, because in the African-American community, the African culture, when we come, we are coming. The entire community is coming to spend time with that loved one. And we're all going to be aunties and cousins. And you're going to wonder, wait a minute, how she only had 3 kids. How does she have 55 cousins? or all these aunties or nieces and nephews, because it's communal. That's what we do. So they came in. I'm talking about great grandchildren, grandchildren, cousins, aunties, neighbors. The room was full of people. She lasted for 2 more weeks. We called the family in like, listen, Auntie literally looks like she will not be of this world much longer. Once everybody came in, I'm talking about the laughter, the love. She thought, well, why would I want to go anywhere now? It is a straight celebration going on in this room. And it was every day. And finally, her little body just got so exhausted that she ended up just transitioning because it was time. But we literally thought when we called the family in that she had less than 24 hours to live. She lived for 2 more weeks because it was celebration time. Why would I want to go anywhere now? We're having a great time. And it was beautiful to see that she was able to actually participate, that the family was, little children coming in, sitting on the bed with her. And I know this doesn't happen all the time because sometimes, a lot of the times that can agitate people. So I'm not advocating for it to be that way all the time. But in her case, when the family started coming in, she was like, okay, well, God, hold on for a second. Give me 2 more weeks. Let me enjoy all of this love and laughter and legacy and family. She said, no, I'm not ready yet. I'm just going to hang out here for a little while. But that was her journey. And it was beautiful. And she was a little aware, but toward the end, she really started to. So we just kind of had family start coming in shifts. So it wouldn't be too overwhelming for her. And then she finally took her rightful place in the land of the ancestors. But that love and that joy and that legacy, imagine if we didn't make the phone call and have a good conversation with the family, she could have just transitioned without all of that. But she went to heaven with a smile on her face because she was surrounded by all of that celebration of who she was and now who she is in their memories. So that is my challenge for you all as community, because in order for us to really start helping to care for one another, we have to now face our own fears when it comes to the dying process. Otherwise, I'm going to enter into your space with my fears and I'm going to have them treat you like they're treating me. Fully alive, ready to get up and go to work the next day, when clearly you're trying to transition. So until we can have that honest conversation with ourselves, it's going to be very challenging for us to care for a loved one because we're going to bring into that space my fears of death. And if I have to advocate for you or speak on your behalf or act as your POA, and they need to give you pain medicine and I have a fear of it because I think that it's going to kill you, then I'm going to say, no, she don't need it. Give her Tylenol. Give her, yeah, wow. So we have to start working on our own thoughts of fears and what that means when it comes to death and what that means to us. So when I'm now coming into your space, if that's what the Lord has asked me to do, ordained me to do, to come into your space to take care of you, I don't need to interject my fears into your space. I need to have a healthy understanding of the dying process. And healthy doesn't mean that fear is going to be eradicated. It's just understood that this person has the right to do it the way they want to do it, just like I have a right to do the way I want to do it. Can you imagine having a hospice nurse come in and take care of you and she had a fear of death and dying? And I know there are hospice nurses that do, because I've had these conversations. But it's like, that's a little confusing, ma'am, sir. Now I'm coming in with my own fear as your nurse. And now I'm interjecting what I fear about death. So my care to you is not as profound as it should be, because it's being blocked by my own fear. So I have to work with that for myself to make sure that when I'm entering into your space, that I see death as a beautiful thing when it's time. Because as a hospice nurse, I'm not prolonging and I'm not expediting. I'm not doing that. That's not what I do. I'm not God. I can't make you die faster and I can't make you live here longer. My goal is to make sure that the time that you have is of optimal quality and peace. But I have to make sure when I come into that space that I bring in that energy, that this journey can be beautiful. It can be peaceful. Yes, it probably came untimely for you, but I do have some people that are ready. They're like, listen, I'm ready to go. I have outlived my family. I'm tired. I'm ready. And that's a whole nother thing when people are really ready, but their body's not. Ooh, mentally, it just every day they're just, why am I still here? I have one right now. She's so ready mentally. She's like, I feel like I'm burdening my family, but her body is not quite there yet. Like she wants it to happen today, but we don't see that her body is there yet. So we have to have these conversations. And the challenge is that she's extremely forgetful. So we have these beautiful conversations. And the following week, when I go back in, I have the same conversation with her again because she doesn't remember, at least not in her brain. I think her soul remembers, but her brain doesn't because of the dementia. That's a whole different space when people are ready. But being able to understand that this journey can be beautiful. That was the biggest takeaway from this week's podcast. So I wanted to come on and continue this conversation to say thank you for the comments. Thank you for the text messages. I've had conversations with people. I shared this with a friend of mine, and they were so grateful. I was literally in a store recently. Once again, anybody that knows me knows that I talk to everybody. So I'm in the store talking to this young lady. I was in a makeup store, whatever, talking to a young lady, and she was helping me to find certain makeup and different things. And we struck up a conversation. And she asked me, what do I do? I said, I'm a nurse. She said, what type of nurse? I said, I'm a hospice nurse. And she just immediately just started sharing with me her story. She lost both of her parents at a young age. Both of her parents were only children. So she had no other siblings, no cousins. It was just her by herself navigating through this world. And her mother was on hospice. And she remembers that when her dad died and her mom died, when her mom died, she wanted her mother to stay, of course, but her mother was ready to go be with her husband. And she said, my mom told me, you're going to be fine. She said, you're going to be just fine, but I'm ready to go be with your dad. And she said she was in her 20s. So she was young when she lost both of her parents. Early 20s, like right out of her teens. So we struck up a whole conversation. I was telling her about the whole end of life process. She literally started crying because she said, this is beautiful to hear it this way. That my mother possibly literally enjoyed the journey because she knew she was going to be with my dad. So after I was done, I was leaving. She had another client come behind her, and she ended up talking to that client about our conversation. She wanted me to write down the name of the podcast. So I wrote down the name of the podcast. I took it back to her. As I'm giving her the information, the other client that she's working with, she tells me, thank you for what you do. She said, she told me everything about the conversation. Then she started crying because she just experienced the death. And when the young lady that was helping me told her our conversation, she said it immediately gave her a sense of relief and peace that her loved one was okay during the transitioning. That was, and this just happened yesterday. So these conversations, everybody has experienced this in some way, shape, or form. And we've all thought about our death, even to a point where we don't want to think about it. So now it's time for us to shift the way we think about death and not allow fear to be the only rising emotion that comes up, but actually understand that that day can actually influence how I live right now. Death can really play a role in my life. So thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for interacting. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your feedback. So incredibly excited about next week's topic. Culture, mistreatment, and the healthcare system, and how all three of those layers influence us coming to hospice. Culture, mistreatment, and the healthcare system. Culture, lack of trust, and the healthcare system, and how those three aspects play a role in how it influences our decisions to come on hospice. Culture, mistrust, and the healthcare system, and the role that they play when making a decision to come onto hospice. So, thank you all for joining me live. I never want to keep you long, but y'all know I love to talk. Ugh. But please take these words with you. Until next time, may compassion guide you and culture ground you. Bye for now. Here we are. Ooh.